Welcome to Inside the Mavs, presented by Aura. My name is Kevin Gray, Mavericks pre- and post-game host on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. Appreciate you joining me here for the latest episode. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel, make sure you like and comment on the video. And if you're listening to the podcast, make sure you download and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast for free. It's the official Mavericks podcast of 97.1 The Freak. Can be found on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. You can follow me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. What an incredible win for the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks overcome a 15-point deficit to get the 107-103 win on the road over the Sacramento Kings to sweep their baseball series, start their 5-game road trip now 3-0 after getting an absolutely gutsy win on the road to now have the tiebreaker over the Sacramento Kings after evening up their season series at 2 games apiece, as the Mavericks now a season high 15 games above 500 at 44-29 after 73 games. Now with 9 games to go, have a legitimate chance of getting not only to the 5th seed, but now sit just 2 games behind the Los Angeles Clippers for the 4th seed in the Western Conference. A remarkable turnaround that sees this team now 17-7 in its last 24 games, thanks to the heroics of Dante Exum in the 4th quarter, knocking down the go-ahead 3 with 27.5 seconds left in the period as the Mavericks outscored the Sacramento Kings in that final quarter, 34-21. Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving absolutely sensational as they combined for 56 points, including 29 in the second half. Kyrie Irving was absolutely phenomenal in that 4th quarter with 14 points. Mavericks only had 3 guys in double figures with Luka, Kyrie, and Derek Lively, but it was the timely shot making of the Mavericks, especially down the stretch, that allowed them to get this win. And their defense, again, the story in the game in the second half, only giving up 43 points to Sacramento, who came out in this game looking to punch the Mavericks in the mouth. In fact, Harrison Barnes and Keon Ellis played well for the Kings in that first half, especially in the first quarter, where they were extremely aggressive, trying to get after Luka Doncic on the defensive end by doubling him and trying to force the ball out of his hands to make other guys be shooters and knock down shots to try to make the Kings pay. And on the offensive end, Harrison Barnes, who was really a non-factor in the game on Tuesday against the Dallas Mavericks, played much more aggressively in the first half and really gave them a spark, did the Kings, in that first half. But the Mavericks stayed with it. They shot 43% from 3, knocking down 15 threes in this game. As the game went on, they shot 47% overall from the field. Yes, Domantas Sabonis had a triple-double, but it was a quiet one, even with De'Aaron Fox dropping in 23 themselves. You could tell that the Kings were making a much more concerted effort to try and win this game because they knew the sense of urgency that was needed given how tight things are in the Western Conference standings. In fact, you could tell that Sacramento was trying to push the pace early on as they outscored the Mavericks 20-3 in the first half in terms of fast break points, really making life difficult for the Mavericks, especially in transition, as the Kings were able to maintain a 9-point lead going into halftime. Teams struggling with offense in the second and third quarters. Mavericks only scoring 25 points in the second and only 22 in the third, the same amount of points that the Kings had in that third quarter with 22, and the Kings had 26 in that second quarter. But at the same time, the defense not only came to play in the second half, as I mentioned, Harrison Barnes had 17 points in the first half. De'Aaron Fox and Keon Ellis combined for 23 first half points, but the Mavericks went 10 of 15 from the free throw line. Not a great shooting night from the free throw line, which would come into play later on, but at the same time, the Mavericks did exactly what they had to do in overcoming what was a 15-point deficit as they got down by as many as 15 in the second quarter with 4.5 minutes left in the period. But the Mavericks were able to get themselves, cut the lead down to 9 going into halftime to give themselves an opportunity going into that third quarter where things were hard to come by. You could tell the physicality for both teams was at an all-time high as you were watching the game continuing to unfold. The Mavericks had a little bit of a scare, obviously, in the game with Luka Doncic hurting his knee in the second quarter, but he was able to come out to start the third And there were times when he was knocking down step-back three-pointers where you could tell he was favoring that knee, but it was the superstar teammate of his and Kyrie Irving that helped him take over the second half. You look at what they were able to do in the second half between Luka and Kyrie, combining for 29 points. As I mentioned, Kyrie Irving was absolutely incredible with his clutch shot making, especially in the fourth quarter, carrying the Mavericks on his back. You look at those fourth quarter numbers specifically and what he was able to do. Kyrie's going 14 points, going a perfect 4-4 from the field, 2 of 2 from downtown, was 4 of 5 from the free throw line, was the consummate playmaker and making it happen for the Mavericks in that fourth quarter. And now they put themselves in position with finishing up their road trip at Houston on Sunday, where the Rockets, they got a 1-point win on the road over the Utah Jazz, 101-100. Now the Rockets have won 11 straight games. It sets up a showdown in Houston on Sunday where you've got a team in the Rockets that's won 11 straight games, still a game behind the Golden State Warriors because they were able to handle business against Charlotte on Friday night. But the Rockets, winners of 11 straight. Mavericks have won now 10 of their last 11. They've won 6 in a row, and wins that both of these teams need. As much winning as the Mavericks have done, they've got to continue to win to continue to put pressure on Sacramento and Phoenix as they remain ahead of them in the Western Conference playoff standings to ensure that they finish in the top 6. But what they were able to do in gutting out the win, and really this started in the second half. As I mentioned, they were down by 9 to begin the second half. Mavericks started that third quarter on a 9-3 run. They were able to cut the lead to 3. Both teams combined for just 15 points in the first 5.5 minutes of that third quarter, and offense was definitely hard to come by, but the Mavericks stuck with it. Luka, Maxi Kleber, who had a couple of big threes in this game as well, they combined for 12 points in that third quarter. Maxi Kleber with his hustle on both ends of the floor, knocking down a shot at the top of the key to cut the lead to 6 with the shot clock running out, was able to knock down another 3 that pulled the Mavericks within 9 with under 2 minutes left in that third. But his hustle on the defensive end as well, you could tell he's making plays in transition, knocking the ball off of Sacramento Kings players. Like, he was really, really good in this game and really gave them a big lift that really set up what was a terrific fourth quarter. More on this game between the Mavericks and the Kings on the other side of the break. But before we get there, let's take a break and let's hear from today's sponsor of our video and our podcast. Let's hear from Aura. Today's video is brought to you by Aura. Do a Google search on your name and email address to see how much information comes up about you. I was devastated by the amount of information that I could be seeing searching my name and profile, and I knew then I needed to be protected for not just myself, but also for my family. Data brokers sell your information to scammers, spammers, and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, email, home address, health records, your relatives, it's all out there. That's why I've been using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use this information to help them access my social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. Aura also does so much more to protect me and my family from online threats that I can't see. It's really easy to set up, so I don't have to download several different apps to get things like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more. I get everything at one affordable price. You may already have one of these tools already, but not having Aura is like locking the front door and leaving the back door wide open. Aura is always on, doing the hard work to protect me and my family so I can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. I value my privacy and I value yours. You can go to aura.com/Kevin Gray to start your 2-week free trial. Please see the link in the description. Back here on Inside the Mavs. Again, thank you for hanging out with me through that break and hearing from today's sponsor of our video and our podcast and hearing from Aura. We were talking about how the Mavericks were able to set themselves up going into that fourth quarter by keeping themselves close to the Sacramento Kings in that third quarter, where, again, the Kings really made an aggressive effort to win this game. Kessler Edwards made a couple of big threes in that third quarter for Sacramento. Malik Monk had to leave the game with a knee injury, was unable to return, and Kessler Edwards was able to make some things happen, especially knocking down some shots from the outside. So the Kings were up by 9 going into that fourth quarter, But that's where things started to turn around for the Mavericks. They used a 7-0 run to cut the lead to 3 with 7.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and it was on from there as Kyrie Irving continued to put this team on his back, especially from the three-point line, and he was really able to get things going offensively. And this has been a hallmark of what he's been able to do over the course of the season. When Luka Doncic has struggled at times offensively, or even when Luka Doncic has had it going, Kyrie Irving has simply been the closer, and he got some more help closing this game from Dante Exum, which we'll get to here in just a moment. But he was able to put the Mavericks up when he made a couple of free throws. He was fouled on the three-point attempt after Dante Exum actually tied the game at 92. Kyrie Irving was subsequently fouled. He made a couple of free throws that had the Mavericks up 94-92 with about 6.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Back and forth fourth quarter. Harrison Barnes got an and one to get the lead back at 95-94. And then Kyrie Irving knocked down another jumper to get the Mavs up back by 1 at 96-95. Keegan Murray then hit a three-pointer with just over 5 minutes left to have them back up 98-96. And then Kyrie Irving knocked down another three-pointer to get the Mavs up by 1 at 99-98. He was going tit for tat with the Sacramento Kings with his incredible shot making and clutch shooting, where the Mavericks, of course, now are 21-8 this season in clutch games this year. That is the best record in the NBA because they have been able to demonstrate a measure of poise and a measure of calm in these situations, led by their superstars in Luka and Kyrie. And it was on full display once again, showing yet another growth of maturation for this team as they continue to move forward in this season. And these are the things, dare I say it, that you see with championship caliber teams: the ability to not fold under pressure, to understand time, score, and situation, and be able to make winning basketball plays that you saw throughout the course of the game, whether it be Maxi Kleber knocking down timely threes, making plays on defense. And one person who will go unsung in this game, who deserves a lot of praise, is Derek Lively II. He had 12 points in this game, was absolutely sensational in what he was able to do with his activity on the glass, had 9 rebounds in this game. And you could tell throughout the course of the game where Jason Kidd kept it a tight rotation, only a 9-man rotation in the game against Sacramento for game 2 of this baseball series that they played. Derek Lively in nearly 24 minutes was extremely effective with his rim running, cutting to the basket, finishing at the rim as he has been customarily doing all season long. I thought Derek Lively was sensational again in this game with his defense, his poise, his maturity, but also his activity with the rebounding in this game, having 6 defensive rebounds, 9 rebounds in total. He was really, really good in this game for the Mavericks, and they needed every bit of his activity on the glass in this game. But as I mentioned, back and forth fourth quarter in this game between the Mavericks and the Kings, game tied at 103 with 38 seconds left. Dante Exum, where would this team be without the services of Dante Exum? People will talk about, obviously, the shot that he hit with 27.5 seconds left on the left wing to give the Mavericks the lead that they would not relinquish, obviously, in this game. But he struggled down the stretch prior to that shot. He had missed a couple of three-pointers, had missed a driving layup at the front of the rim, but his teammates continue to tell him to be aggressive. Dante Exum remaining aggressive and not buckling in the moment and knocking down a pressure shot when the Mavericks absolutely needed it most, and he delivered once again. And yes, the shot was huge, but the defense that he played on De'Aaron Fox down the stretch, bottling him up, not allowing him to get to the bucket as he's customarily doing in terms of his penetration. Dante Exum's defense was absolutely phenomenal for this team when they needed him most. And then, of course, the shot making that he was able to do in that fourth quarter, tying the game at 92, and then eventually hitting the go-ahead three-pointer, hit 2 of the biggest threes of the game with the game tied at 92 that he hit. And then, of course, the game winner that had the Mavericks up by 3 with just under 28 seconds left in the game. And this is what he has done since coming back from injury. He's gotten his legs back under him. He's provided length. He's provided athleticism and toughness on the defensive end as part of that second unit. And he was out there closing in this game for the Mavericks. So a lot of trust being placed in Exum's ability to be able to make the winning plays and he was able to do so down the stretch. And for the Mavericks, another gut check win. We thought that they played their most complete game on Tuesday when they were able to throttle the Kings by 36. You knew the Kings would be much better in this game, much tougher, much more physical to try and break up some of that rhythm that the Mavericks had in game one of this baseball series. But at the same time, the Mavericks withstood the blow that came in the first quarter, as I mentioned, with the Kings scoring those 34 points, being up by 8 at the end of one. You knew that if the Mavericks could withstand the emotional punch that the Kings were going to throw, the physicality that they were going to try and engage this game with, if they could keep things close going into the fourth quarter, the scoring and the clutch play of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving would come into play, and that's exactly what happened when you look at the fourth quarter. Luka Doncic knocking down a three-pointer to get them within 7. Then Kyrie Irving knocking down another 3 to get them in 3. And then Luka Doncic with the gorgeous no-look pass to Dante Exum, as I mentioned, to tie the game at 92. Whether it was Luka passing or him scoring, whether it was Kyrie scoring or making plays for others himself, the two of them put the Mavericks on their backs once again, and this is what makes this team so scary down the stretch. We've talked about it before, and we'll continue to talk about it because they continue to perform at a high level. When you've got these two superstars playing this well offensively, now understanding how to play off of one another and how to allow the other to take turns to be able to take over games when they need to, and the uncanny ability for Kyrie Irving to hit shots in the clutch as well as Luka Doncic to do so. That is a recipe for other guys to know exactly what their roles are, to continue to play at a consistent level so that those two can take over exactly in the moments that they need to. And that is exactly how this played out. The supporting cast of Dante Exum, Maxi Kleber, Derek Lively II, and others putting this team in position, keeping them close, withstanding the emotional and physical punch that the Kings threw at them because they had to win this game as badly as the Mavericks did, knowing how tight things are in the Western Conference down the stretch. The Mavericks were simply better and were able to do that. And you look at what they did in terms of their bench. The Mavericks bench outscoring the Kings bench 31-19 in this game. Just another telling statistic about what they were able to do because points were hard to come by in this game. Who was going to be the team that supported their stars the best in order to win this game? And it turned out that it was the Mavericks once again. As I mentioned, now 21-8 in the clutch this year. The amount of poise and calm demeanor that they are playing with, yes, that comes from their head coach and Jason Kidd. There was reporting in The Athletic that Jason Kidd is looking for a potential contract extension at the end of this year. And while, yes, the Mavericks have been playing at a high level, as I mentioned a little bit earlier now, 17-7 in their last 24 games. They are playing as one of the best teams in the league. I'm not talking about just one of the best teams in the Western Conference. This team has legitimately been one of the 5 best teams in the NBA since February. And it's obviously coincided with the acquisitions of Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, but it's more so about the gelling of Luka and Kyrie and now the supporting cast fitting into their roles perfectly. And again, when you look at championship teams, everyone knows their role. Everyone plays it consistently night in and night out, and you let your stars dominate in the moments, the most important moments that you need them to. And Luka and Kyrie continue to deliver for this team when they need it most, and you saw that time and time again. Again, the defense for Dante Exum was spectacular. The activity and the rebounding of Derek Lively II was great once again. The timely shot making and the confidence that Maxi Kleber is starting to show again from the three-point line. Huge in this game against the Sacramento Kings. And then Luka and Kyrie taking over down the stretch, doing what they do, dominating in the second half, and Kyrie Irving being the closer in the fourth quarter. But as I mentioned, this team would not be where they are without Dante Exum, who has overcome injury. And this team, this is a perfect game to just show you what this team has been through throughout the course of the year. A team that's played more starting lineups than any other team in the league, has dealt with injury and adversity, being down and having been counted out at times when they lost 5 of 6. They were down in this game by 15, but they did not let go of the rope, and they continue to chip away and chip away, and they finally were able to break through when it mattered most in the fourth quarter because of the team collective effort to continue to play with the same tough mindset that was needed to win this game, because they knew that the Kings were going to be trying to win this game as much as they got embarrassed on Tuesday night, and you give credit to Sacramento for doing so. But the Mavericks were the better team, and they're showing that they are the better team most nights that they're playing now. And that's a scary outlook if your team's in the West looking at what the Mavericks have been able to do. They're starting to peak at the right time. The question will be down the stretch now, as the Mavericks have essentially been in playoff mode really for the last month. Can they continue to sustain this level of play night in and night out, as not only they finish out the final 9 games of this regular season, but then, as it looks to be right now, securing a top 6 spot in the Western Conference and not having to worry about the play-in, which is obviously going to give them an opportunity to rest a little bit while the play-in tournament plays itself out. And then we will see how the top 8 of the West look as we get ready for the NBA playoffs. But the Mavericks did exactly what they had to do. They won both games in Sacramento. They were able to get off to a good start on this road trip by taking out Utah and handling business there. And then they win both games in Sacramento to set themselves up where they have clinched an above 500 road trip with 2 games left against, of course, the Houston Rockets on Sunday before they take on the Golden State Warriors. So for the Mavericks, for Jason Kidd and this group, an absolute gut check win that they had to have on the road. They were able to withstand the punch of the Sacramento Kings, and more importantly, they came out on the other side with a massive, massive win. And now they've won 10 out of their last 11 games, a season high 15 games above 500. They're now 22-14 on the road this year, in a team that last year was 38-44, 11th in the Western Conference, now having won 44 games and are in terrific position to remain within striking distance of possibly getting the 4 seed in the West. We'll see how the Los Angeles Clippers handle themselves down the stretch. The New Orleans Pelicans are sitting right there in 5th, where the Mavericks are just a game behind them now for the 5th spot in the West. So there's still a lot to play for. As much as these first 3 wins on the road have been fantastic, there's still a lot to play for this team to really give themselves a chance. If they're able to get into the top 5 or possibly the top 4, now we're talking about not just how successful they can be in the playoffs, but we're legitimately talking about Luka Doncic as the NBA's MVP this season. That is what another monster performance from him is putting him in position to do. He got the 26 points, the 12 assists, the 9 rebounds. While yes, didn't have necessarily a great shooting night, was able to get to the free throw line 14 times. He was able to seal it with 1 of 2 free throws down the stretch after the Kings turned the ball over. Harrison Barnes missed a 3-pointer. They got the rebound, tried to find De'Aaron Fox. He turned it over in the backcourt. They eventually found Luka Doncic, and he hit 1 of 2 free throws to seal it for the Mavericks. But these are the kinds of numbers, and Luka playing over 40 minutes in this game, a heroic effort given the fact that he was dealing with the Achilles injury, coming into the game, hurt his knee in that second quarter, still waiting to see what his status will be for on Sunday. But at the same time, he was able to come back in the game and didn't necessarily have any type of limp. So it looks like he's going to be okay going into Sunday. So all things come up rosy for the Mavericks, and what I thought was an extremely impressive win for this team as they get the 107-103 win over the Sacramento Kings. A lot of good things that happened in this game. You knocked down 15 3-pointers. You defend in the second half. Your rookie center and Derek Lively showed up big, and your role players supported your superstars in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, who were able to take over in the second half and really dominate the way that they needed to. Kyrie Irving continued to be one of the best closers that the game has ever seen, reached a 17,000-point plateau, as well becoming the 103rd player in the history of the league to do that, and continues to be absolutely devastating in the fourth quarter, and he was doing that once again in this win for the Mavericks. So they got the day off on Saturday. They'll get to Houston for what will be the game of the day in the NBA on Sunday between the Rockets and the Mavericks. Rockets winners of 11 straight. Mavericks having won 10 out of their last 11, having won 6 in a row as well. Both teams continuing to need wins down the stretch. Should be one hell of a basketball game at the Toyota Center in Houston on Sunday. That'll do it for this episode of Inside the Mavs. Again, thank you so much for joining me here on this episode. Make sure you like and comment on the video. Subscribe to Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. Also, download and subscribe to Inside the Mavs, the official Mavericks podcast of 97.1 The Freak on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And wherever you get your podcasts for free, give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. And again, you can follow me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. This has been Inside the Mavs. Your host, Kevin Gray, signing off. We'll talk to you later. Peace.